In the middle of the vast Pacific Ocean, more than 3,500 kilometers from the nearest mainland, sits a small island with nearly 900 giant stone statues standing silently, facing the sea. No one knows for certain why they were built, and no one knows for certain what happened to the people who built them. Easter Island, known to its native people as Rapa Nui, is one of the most remote inhabited places on Earth. The island covers only about 163 square kilometers, sitting more than 3,500 kilometers from Chile and thousands of kilometers from the nearest inhabited island. Archaeologists estimate that Polynesian settlers arrived here around 1200 AD, possibly earlier, after an extraordinarily bold ocean voyage in traditional double-hulled canoes. Over the following centuries, the people of Rapa Nui created one of the most striking sculptural achievements of the ancient world. Nearly 900 moai statues, carved from volcanic rock, averaging 4 meters tall, with some weighing more than 80 tons. Most statues were carved at a single quarry, the Rano Raraku volcanic crater, where hundreds of unfinished statues still lie scattered to this day. Statues were somehow transported for kilometers to coastal stone platforms called ahu. Despite the Rapa Nui having no wheels or large draft animals, they developed their own hieroglyphic writing system called rongorongo, which remains only partially deciphered to this day. They built a complex, stratified society of clans, each erecting its own statues as a way of asserting power and honoring ancestors. But when the first European explorers, led by Dutch Admiral Jacob Roggeveen, landed on the island in 1722, on Easter Sunday, which is how the island got its modern name, they found a society already in serious decline. The forest had almost entirely vanished, and the population had shrunk dramatically compared to what the scale of the massive stone monuments suggested. What could cause a civilization once capable of organizing, transporting, and erecting hundreds of enormous statues to fall into such decline? This remains one of the most fiercely debated questions in archaeology today. This is the most famous theory, popularized widely through geographer Jared Diamond's book, Collapse. According to this theory, Easter Island was once covered by a giant species of palm tree closely related to the Chilean wine palm, some estimated to grow over 20 meters tall. To transport the multi-ton moai statues, islanders had to cut down enormous numbers of trees to make rollers, ropes, and canoes. Pollen analysis from lake sediment cores on the island shows the forest disappeared almost entirely, sometime between the 13th and 17th centuries, with radiocarbon dating placing the sharpest decline right around the peak period of statue construction. Once the forest vanished, the soil eroded badly. There was no longer wood to build ocean-going fishing canoes, and seabirds lost their nesting habitat, cutting off an important food source. According to Diamond, the result was famine, internal conflict between clans competing for the remaining resources, and even controversial archaeological evidence suggesting cannibalism during the depths of the crisis. Another theory proposed by archaeologists Terry Hunt and Carl Lipo argues that humans weren't the primary cause at all. Rather, it was the Polynesian rat, which arrived as a stowaway on the settlers' canoes. With no natural predators on the island, the rat population may have exploded at an extraordinary rate, potentially reaching into the millions within just a few decades of first arrival. Analysis of fossilized palm seeds found on the island shows most had been gnawed by rats, preventing new saplings from replacing trees that were cut down or died naturally. Under this theory, the forest disappeared not primarily because humans chopped it down, but because rats blocked the forest's ability to regenerate across generations, meaning the loss of the forest was less a single act of destruction and more a slow, compounding ecological trap. Hunt and Lipo also famously demonstrated through a field experiment that a team of just 18 people could move a full-size Moai replica upright by rocking it side to side with ropes, a walking technique that would have required far less timber than the log rolling method Diamond's theory assumes, further weakening the idea that statue transport alone could account for total deforestation. A different line of research argues that the most severe population collapse actually happened after Europeans arrived on the island, not before, as the ecocide theory suggests. Historical records show the Rapa Nui population was still relatively stable when Roggeveen arrived in 1722, with estimates around 3,000 people. But over the following century, repeated contact with European trading ships brought diseases the islanders had no immunity to, causing mass deaths. Especially devastating were the slave raids of the mid-19th century, when Peruvian slaving ships abducted thousands of Rapa Nui people, including the noble class who held the knowledge of the Rongorongo script, and shipped them to South America for forced labor in guano mines and plantations. Most never returned, and those who did often brought smallpox back with them, triggering further epidemics. By 1877, the native population on the island was recorded at a mere 111 people, a catastrophic decline from a population that had once been large enough to erect hundreds of massive statues. Some researchers today push back against the familiar self-destruction narrative. They point out that even as the forest disappeared, the Rapa Nui developed clever adaptive farming methods, such as scattering crushed volcanic rock across the ground, known as rock gardens or lithic mulching, to retain moisture and shield the soil from ocean winds, allowing them to keep farming even without forest cover. The islanders also relied heavily on sweet potatoes, a highly resilient crop, and domesticated chickens as a stable protein source, reducing their dependence on ocean-going canoe fishing once the forest and larger boats were gone. Archaeological evidence of nutritional health among the pre-contact population based on skeletal analysis shows no signs of the severe malnutrition that the ecocide theory would predict. This has led many scientists to believe that external factors, disease and the slave trade, beach, were the primary drivers of the catastrophic population collapse, rather than the Rapa Nui society destroying itself, as the popular narrative often claims. There's a common misconception that needs correcting. The Rapa Nui people did not disappear. Despite going through the most catastrophic population decline in their history during the 19th century, the Rapa Nui community survived and rebuilt. Today, roughly 7,000 people of Rapa Nui descend live on the island, alongside a larger community on mainland Chile. The Rapa Nui language is still spoken. Traditional festivals, such as Tapati Rapa Nui, are still held annually to celebrate ancestral culture, and the island is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, drawing tens of thousands of visitors every year. So what really happened on Easter Island? Scientific evidence increasingly suggests the story isn't as simple as the popular civilization that destroyed itself out of greed narrative once told. It was most likely a combination of factors: deforestation caused by both humans and rats, remarkably creative agricultural adaptations that allowed the population to survive in harsh conditions, and finally, a catastrophic shock from disease and the slave trade brought by contact with the outside world, a factor entirely beyond the islanders' own control. The story of Easter Island, then, isn't just a warning about ecological limits. It's also a testament to the extraordinary resilience of a human community in the face of some of the most devastating events imaginable. Which theory do you lean toward? Humans destroying their own environment, rats as the real culprit, or Europeans as the true cause of the population disaster? Leave a comment and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, because next week I'll be covering another mystery: the Roanoke Colony, the settlement that vanished without a trace in America. See you then.